Hi there, I'm John and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and if you are new here, welcome. I'm John from Nigeria, and on this channel I review books. I do the occasional book review, singular book reviews, book tags, book hauls, everything bookish you can find on here. And if you're a fan of written reviews, like essay length written reviews, I write for the website lifeonbooks.com. I'll put it up here so you can check those out if that's your thing. So a very happy new year to everyone, subscribers, new watchers. Welcome to 2025. This is my first video of the year, so it's very exciting to be doing this for the first time this year. I have not filmed this year. This is the first time I'm attempting to film anything. I went home for the holidays, but now I'm back to wherever I stay at the moment in another state. So yeah, I decided that it was finally time to give my best books of 2024. Yes, this is like the video that I was supposed to put out at the end of last year, but not really, because I personally prefer finishing and concluding my reading year before giving any sort of like overview on like my reading and that sort of thing. So yeah, 2024 happened to be the year I read the most books ever. I read 36 books, which is 3 from my previous personal best in 2022 of 33 books, and I also pleased with the number this year, and my goal was 50, of course, as it usually is, but as always too, I did not meet my goal, but I was still very proud. My average rating for the year was, I think, around 3.2 or 3.3 stars, which it's almost always like that and always that low. I think maybe last year it was like 3.1 or something. I read books that mostly fall in that 3-star region, and I really do not mind this when people say it makes it seem like they did not have a good reading year. That's not it for me, my opinion. I just like, if I can take something from it, and I do think those kind of books that are not always blowing me away, they kind of balance out my reading for me. So that's it. I don't want to ramble too much, but yeah, finally here with the list. And first, I will give just a few honorable mentions that did not quite make the cut, but yes. First honorable mention is Little Weirds by Jenny Slate, which I read back in January, and a lot of like the passages in this book stayed with me, even though I was not blown away by it, because it has just like these bits that I felt were too abstract and were like doing too much. But then I just found like the messaging on softness, desiring a meaningful life, like desiring love in life and love for the self. I found those things, like many passages in this book stayed with me throughout the year, and they held me at very difficult points of the year for me, because I had quite a challenging year, and I kept coming back to certain quotes that I shared earlier in the year, and at different points I shared, and I kept coming back to those quotes again. And for that reason, I just want to shout this out, because it's just did so much for me during the year. The second book on my honorable mentions is Autumn by Alice Smith, which I read in May and was my first Alice Smith and the first book in the seasonal quartet. And this was probably like the most unique novel, the most unique writer voice I read last year, and just made me so excited to read more Alice Smith, because people who I adore really like her. So I enjoyed this book and how it looks at like the relationship between this woman and this man who is dying, and shows us their relationship before the point where they are at in the present. We see that when she was really young, she met this man who was her neighbor, and he kind of like changed her eye as a person in the world, and it just kind of like impacted her eye, and she just like meeting somebody that is like way past your age, like maybe 5 times your age, and it just like opens a new part of the world to you being so young, and how it stays with this woman maybe for the rest of her life. And that's what we are seeing in this book, and just little things here and there, and I cannot wait to read more Alice Smith. You should check this out. The final book on my honorable mentions list is one I actually finished in December, and it's Vladivostok Circus by Elisa Sapin, author of Winter in Structure, and it's translated from the French. This is my third work of Elisa, and it's her third work that has been translated to English. And I pretty much said that with my friend who I body read this with, I mentioned it, I would read anything she wrote, and we body read this together again, and oh my god, it's just perfect for December. Like, this is going to be a future constant winter reading recommendation from me from now on. But then it's also a book about a young woman who goes to a circus in Russia, and she's like a costume designer, and so she goes there because she gets like this kind of gig to make costumes for some circus performance, and it's how like they kind of bond over the little holiday where she stays there. But I'll talk about this more in my December wrap up. Let me not say too much here, but I think this might be my favorite work of Elisa Sapin, and I really enjoyed this book. So I guess that will take us into the main 10 books, and yeah, very solid 10. I think from 1 to 9 I was very sure they were on the list. Then 10 I wanted to just round it off to 10 rather than doing 9 books, but even 10 book I really liked, so that's not saying anything against it. But yes, these are my 10 favorite books of the year, and they are in order because I am a list person and I love order, and so I'll be going from 10 up to 1. And yeah, starting at number 10 is All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Remarque. This is a World War I novel about a boy who enlists for the war, and we just see how the war kind of changes and impacts the men of this time. There's a look at how war is really just like sacrifice in a sense, and how it sacrifices a lot of these young men for this war, where the cause was not really like, you would not expect that something like this would create such an effect that will cost the lives of so many men. And we see how so many young men lose their lives in this war, and how they know just from being in the war, just from the short time they spend there, that it's most likely that their lives will never remain the same. And we follow our main character Paul. It's just his eye transforming over and over again as he is in the war, and just like becoming conscious and becoming aware of the fact that the older generation, which seemed like they were supposed to be their protectors, kind of like sentenced them to this life in kind of like pushing for the younger people to enlist for the war and stuff like that. And this book just hit me so much. I had seen the film first, but then I decided to read the book because it's my friend's favorite novel, and it did not disappoint in any way. I cried at the end, like not so much, but I shed a tear, because you just wonder, you are just so sad at how like these men do not get to live like their lives to the fullest, and how they are aware of it, but it's like people dying slowly, dying off. And there's just a quality here where like the action in the book as the war is going on, like the moments of rest in the book are the moments of rest for the reader, and it just like balances that out. So I think Remarque tells this story expertly, and please, if you have not read this, pick it up, and please check out the film too, because I really like that as well. Number 9 is a book I read at the beginning of the year, and it's The Vulnerables by Sigrid Nunez, which I think I've mentioned Nunez too much on this channel and how much I love her. I will link I don't know if I can link my review, but I do have a review of this book on the Life of Books website, so you can check that out. And one of my high points of last year was that I emailed this review to Sigrid Nunez's like publicist, and she showed it to her, and Sigrid Nunez in turn wrote back to me, and it just kind of like gave me hope for the path I am deciding to take in writing and pushing and pursuing it, and that it's not entirely hopeless regardless of being from here, where it's not like the easiest to break out in that sense. But yes, Vulnerables is a kind of pandemic novel, and so we are seeing like the pandemic. Our writer is writing from like when the pandemic is kind of over, but she's looking back on the times and like what made her days. And a specific thing is that she was asked by a friend of a friend of a friend, something like that, to look after the friend's pet parrot in their apartment, because they got stuck in another state and they had this pet parrot. So she's asked to help them look and watch over the parrot. And as with other Nunez novels, you get this insert of like relationship between human and animals, but I think even a bit more here, because like the parrot is like bit more present, but also the same in the friend. And there's the relationship between Nunez and a boy who was the one taking care of the cat for the family friends because he's more affiliated with them, but then he kind of went away and he came back because he did not want to go home. So it's what just conspires between this older narrator and this younger person. So it's the older and younger person like meeting at a certain point with their different views of life. As usual, Nunez writing about humanity and like everything that she does so well with her referencing. So just like her eye on the world that I think teaches you, helps you to empathize, knowing that she's much older, and me being much younger reading it, I think it's one of the ways it's constantly expanding how I see the world. I just love this woman so much. I want everybody to read her, and I cannot wait to go through her other novels. So yes, check out this work and all her works. I don't know if the 8th book will come as a surprise, but it's Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, and I know I have this torn part here, and even the back is kind of like a lot happened with me and this book in the 5 months it took me to read it. But yeah, I finished it in the beginning of December, and it's just a big, grand, sweeping story of so many characters connected to each other. But at the center, we have Anna Karenina, a woman who falls into this affair with a man in society, and a lot of things happen between them. She ends up leaving her husband, and it's very difficult knowing that this is like the 1800s, and like divorce policies then were not even like very set in stone and like very favorable. So it's just that her like throwing every dust to the wind, throwing a lot of things to the wind, and going after this love that is more important to her. But at the offset, we have so many other characters like that. We are seeing the lives of different characters in here, like we are seeing their lives full on, not in part, and we see that they all know each other somehow. And it's really just a big sweeping story about humanity and how vastly different each and every human being is. And it's Russian aristocracy. We are seeing like Russian aristocrats, like high wealthy society, but then they are still human people, and they still have like so many like human internal conflicts, external conflicts as well, like from motherhood to love. There's a bit of politics in here. We also have a bit of like grief, loss, and Tolstoy just does masterful work with just how he captures like these different aspects to humanity in this big novel. I'm not saying too much and doing it justice, but it was just a long time with this book and these characters, and just like going from this character to this character to this character. It is entertaining, it is sad at points, it is annoying and aggravating at points. Tolstoy does talk a lot in this book. You can clearly see how big it is. I'll probably do a single video for this one, but I really enjoyed this book and the ride, and I don't know if I will ever forget just that time. And it's the joy of reading big books like this, but also like discovering these classics and seeing why they are classics, and just spending time with them, and just like that these authors, you see why they are as relevant as they are today, because even so far back in the 1800s, and like so many of the things that are happening here are still the experiences of people today. So yeah, just a wonderful book. The 7th book is a book with a character I did not stop thinking about for quite a while during the year, and it's The Idiot by Elif Batuman. And this is a very famous campus novel. I don't know how famous, but it's mostly famous, and it's a book that follows Celine, a young girl who just gets into Harvard, and she is like, this is like the 90s, and so email is coming into play, and this is her just discovering like life. Essentially, she's like getting thrown and exposed to life, because it's like her first forays into like really living more independently, like entering into college and all. So we see her falling in love, we see her getting into like these situations, but the standout part of the book is really like the voice, the narrative voice, the character's voice, like one of the most singular voices I've read in recent memory, because it's just like it has so much personality. The way she speaks, what she speaks about, what she ruminates about, we are mostly in her head internally, and she's narrating her life as she goes through this first year in Harvard. That's what we get in this first book, and I just loved so many parts of it. I think the beauty and like the brilliance of the book settled on me after finally getting to the end of it, and finding that it was I think it was a bit too long, but then you kind of see, okay, this is her first year in college, and so many of the things that happen, we are getting them, and so you kind of see like why this book is like this long. But I think I talk about it more. I talk about all these books in different wrap-ups during the month, so I don't know if I'll be able to link all of them, but The Idiot I talk about in my August wrap-up. So yes, you can check this out. It has a sequel, and it's rumored to have like a third book attached to it, so I cannot wait to read the next book and the book after that, because yes, I know I'm going to love it already. Last year I kind of read a few poetry collections. Every year I do like very few poetry collections, but last year I think I read 3, and the 6th book was the standout poetry collection for me, and it's Night Sky with Exit Wounds by Vuong. And I mentioned how in my, I think, September wrap-up, maybe, or maybe August, I don't know, I mentioned how I did not like Vuong's writing that I had seen on the internet, especially from his book On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous, which I had seen so many quotes from the book and they constantly pissed me off. But then I read like this poetry collection, and oh my god, that was my constant state of self when I read this book. Even in the video, in the wrap-up, I talk about it. I think it's August, and it's just like, this is like poetry. Sometimes there's just so much, there's a way I don't even know the word to use, but there's just life, there's a certain quality of life to it. It feeds it pierces the soul and the spirit. It does not just touch your mind, and I think it's more, it touches your inner self the most, and that's what so many poems in this collection did for me. Like the poetry, the writing, oh my god, this is probably the first time I'm talking of a book like this. I'm not having so many words to say, because there were points where I would shake in my whole body, because like, what was this? And writing could do this, and I was just blown away, and he shut me up, and it makes me excited to read probably everything he has written, even the book I'm thinking I would not like, but just to read it nonetheless. And I cannot wait for him to do more poetry, and I plan to read his other collection already. But yes, there's just so much beauty in this collection, and just the writing, that's one of the writing picks of the year for me, so please check it out. Number 5, I have a kind of famous, popular Bookstagram book talk darling, and it's Lie With Me by Philippe Besson, and it's a book that follows a man, Philippe, who in the future he is a writer now, and he sees a boy when he's doing an interview. He sees a man going somewhere, and he stops the man because he thinks the man reminds him of somebody he used to know, who he had a relationship with when he was much younger. And so we are taking back to the past, the 80s, and we see as our main character Philippe developed this relationship with Thomas, and it's kind of this like very high summer kind of affair fling thing, because yeah, it's not affair, this summer fling, and it kind of marks both of their lives forever. And we are taking through that summer in the 80s and just how their life progressed into the future. It's a very, very short novel, under I think 120 pages or so, but like the impact is felt. By the end of the novel, the impact is felt. It shatters you, it breaks your heart in many ways. I sat down on the floor in my parlor crying for like 30 minutes straight after finishing this book, because I did not, when I started it, I was not really like, I was not enjoying it, but I was not like, this was not going to be anything new. And the writing kind of reminded me of Asiman's writing in Call Me By Your Name a bit, so I was like, we can tell the writing is nice, he knows he can write, but then the story, when it takes off, it takes off, and it's completely like devastates you. And I really enjoyed this book, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. My number 4 was my first of this author, and definitely not my last, and it's The Ghostwriter by Philippe Roth. And oh my gosh, this book, the voice, the narrative voice, it's like this year was the year of reading narrative voices that just like stunned you. And Philippe Roth captured something with Nathan Zuckerman, his main character here, who gets an invite from his writing idol, his favorite writer, to come meet him where he lives and just like to kind of interact. And we kind of see how he essentially goes there in a way to like bear witness to this writer's life, who who has been kind of secluded all his writing life and kind of stays away from the public eye, and it's like he gets prizes, does not accept them. And so we kind of see Nathan, it's that kind of situation where you somehow get to meet your favorite writer and kind of get to converse with them, and it's just the conversations they have on art and like on writing, and it's like we see bits and pieces of Nathan's life and we see bits and pieces of like the writer's life also. And it's a book series actually, so it's really how this first book sets the ground for a lot of what will come later in the series. But oh my god, there's just so many humorous moments in here, moments that made me laugh. I just adored it when I read it so much, and just how quick it felt to go through it, but also just like the lasting impact of the character's voice. I've only read to Philippe Roth, but I'm just looking forward to read more and more of him. And I think with that we have come into the top 3 section, and yeah, let's run through them. Number 3, we have Giovanni's Rule by James Baldwin. Read it in June, my first Baldwin, and I see why he is a notable author. I would say at the beginning of this book, it's also how I kind of felt with Lie With Me, not in story wise, but that these authors know they can write, and so we got like very lovely passages, very lovely sentences, imagery, and great writing, but I was not feeling any punch. But constantly I thought he knows how to write great conversations. And this is a book that follows an American, I think the main character is white. I always, before reading this, thought he was going to be black for some reason, because James Baldwin is black, of course, but finding out he was white, I cannot remember how, somewhere along reading this book just kind of shocked me. But then we follow this character who has left, he's in Paris, he's American but he's staying in Paris, and he has a fiancée who has gone away for a while, but then he encounters Giovanni, a bartender, and they kind of develop this relationship that in a way we can say changes both of their lives forever, because at the beginning of the novel we're already given like a bit of the major plot and storyline, and what we are getting later is like a walk back on what like these first pages has told us and what's led up to that point in the novel where this drastic thing is taking place. And oh my gosh, like I think this one hits you especially towards the end, but I also say it has a it's one of like the best first chapters I've read in recent memory. Even just the first page alone, like it sets like the novel, it sets like what the tone of the novel, whatever the rest of the novel is going to be about. And before we start getting this like laid up writing to the present. And yes, oh my god, I cannot wait to read more Baldwin in the future. By the time I finished my number 2, it was my number 1, and if I had not read number 1, this would have been it for the year, because this really stunned me in many ways, and it hurts me to put it here because I love it so much, but then just having to be true to my list, and I would say it's quite close, but yes, it's The Days of Abandonment by Elena Fant. This was my second Ferrante. I read this in August, and we follow a woman whose husband tells her out of the blue one afternoon that he's leaving her. That's literally the first sentence of the book, and just like you know immediately that regardless of what happens, you are getting some form of tea or drama, not to use Gen Z-ish language, but then that's what this book is. But this is really like a character portrait of a woman who is very reminiscent of a lot of women who have existed and who are still existing today, who get cheated on and left by their husbands with children, and they have to pick themselves up again, and the husband sometimes leaves them for someone who is younger. And it is just like we see our narrator Olga going through every stage of, I don't know if you call it stage of grief, stage of like combusting, whatever. She's angry at points, she's sad at points. There are points where it feels like she's completely spiraling, and really how what her husband does kind of just devastates and upsets her life, and she still has to be a mother at the end of the day. She still has to take her children to school, she still has to cater to her children while it feels like she's dying inside, while it feels like she's suffering so badly, but then she still has to be present because her husband decided that he found found something else in a younger woman, and you just feel so angry. Like the rage I felt reading this book, I've not felt ever reading any book. I could not believe that that kind of emotion was possible to be elicited out of me, because just at some point it was just so visceral. And Ferrante is just a master at her writing, at her character portraits, and this is my second work of hers, and in the first one, The Lost Daughter, she does look at motherhood also, but here it's just so much sharper. It is a phenomenal work of literature. It was on that New York Times 100 books whatever, and rightfully so. Please, if you have not read any Ferrante, I think you can start here. You can start with The Lost Daughter, but of the two, I really love The Lost Daughter, but this one is the one. This is the one. 5 stars. This was the first book I gave 5 stars in 2024. So please check it out. Please, please, please. My final book of the year, if you follow me, I don't know, maybe you might anticipate that this would have been it since I've not mentioned it. But yes, it's an American classic. And I did not intend to be basic, but oh well. It's The Catcher in the Rye by J.D Salinger, and yes, it's the very divisive American classic that I know a lot of people do not like, but I'm not going to say much, if anything at all, on this book here. I do have a review up on my channel, its own separate review, where I talk about why I think this book is very misunderstood, why I think the takes on it are idiotic. Yes, I love this book, and if I'm going to remember like definitive books for like my reading my eye as a reader, 1 or 2, but this is my book of the year. So please check it out if you have not. But who am I kidding? Who has not? So I'm probably the last. But yeah, I know I do not do these books justice as I should in this video, probably because I've talked about them at multiple points during the year, and like, so you can just go through the wrap-ups on my channel and you will see that I've talked about each and every one of these books. But I genuinely love all of them, like solid reads. Please check them out. The Catcher in the Rye was my only other 5-star. So every year I usually have like 1 or 2, and the only year it has been 3 was 2021. In 2023, last year, there was no 5-star, but this year I had 2 terrific ones, very high points, like the Baldwin Ghostwriter Lie With Me. Those are around 4.5, and the rest are just solid 4 stars. So you can please check each and every one of them out. I hope you had a fantastic reading year, and I hope your 2025 reading is much better and that you have started like reading something for the year. But please, if you like this video, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I really thank all of you who stuck with me throughout last year. I will just do a few shout outs. I will say Elif Sonata, because she's always every comment, and I adore seeing her comments, and it pleases me to see her comment every time I make a video. And I would say Kurt, thank you so much for always watching and your long comments. I adore them. Please leave me long comments, guys. I want to see very long comments because I enjoy reading and responding to them. But yeah, that's it. I definitely am going to be doing more for 2025, and yes, my 25 for 25 video will be coming soon, so you can stick around for you can watch out for that, and I'll definitely see you in the next one. Bye.